My name is Deborah, and I just want to add my welcome to Tom's welcome at the start. And I don't know about you, but I'm feeling properly Christmassy now. After we've sang some of those songs, it really starts to feel a little bit like Christmas. But I wonder what Christmas means to you. I wonder what the first thing that comes into your mind when you think about Christmas. Perhaps it's roast dinners or just delicious Christmas food in general. My son Toby yesterday made gingerbread. It was very good. There's not much left already. Maybe what comes to your mind when you think of Christmas is family and the thought of all those family gatherings over this Christmas season are filling you with just a real sort of anticipation of excitement, or maybe dread, whatever it is. It might be your first thought of Christmas is presents. And there's no shame, there's no judgment of you being completely materialistic, none at all. Maybe you enjoy the music at Christmas time. It's funny, isn't it? The songs that we cannot bear to listen to for 11 months of the year get played on repeat during December. There are lots of traditions at this time of year, whether it's the trees, the lights. There's lots of sparkly fairy lights at the moment. The wreaths, we've got some of those up as well. The carols, the advent calendars. But I want to be controversial this evening. I want to suggest that there is one Christmas tradition that is completely overrated. One Christmas tradition that just should be avoided at all costs. And that is the Christmas market. And the reason for my view is admittedly based on just one single experience. You see, for a long time, I have been hearing about how amazing Christmas markets were and hearing of families going and spending the whole day at Christmas markets and having a really wonderful time. So I convinced my husband and my two sons that we needed to take a trip to Bath to visit the Christmas markets ourselves, and I promised them lights and savoury food and music and sweet food and beautiful things to look at and free food samples. And I convinced them that we should travel by train that day and make a whole day of it. And so we set off early one Saturday morning. I think that might be where the first mistake was made. And it was the same Saturday morning that there happened to be a rugby match in Bath. So we had to fight the crowds to even reach the platform. And the whole place was just heaving. We stood on that platform for ages. And have you ever noticed that train platforms always have a microclimate of their own, which is about 5 degrees lower than the rest of the surrounding environment? I'm just going to let that play for a minute. The trains to Bath were delayed, and when they did arrive, they were already full of people, and there was just no room for us to get on. So we continued to wait, and finally a train arrived, which was also packed, but we managed to squeeze on with the helpful shouts and pushes of a train conductor. And then we stood, squashed together like sardines for the 15-minute journey to Bath. But I kept reminding my boys it was going to be worth it. It was. There was going to be food and drink and more food and music and atmosphere. And most importantly, there was going to be food. But when we reached the market, those same sardines were squashed in the narrow streets of Bath, and every store was 3 deep with customers. There was no music and very little atmosphere, and to top it off, there was no free food samples. The only food was extortionately priced and at the end of a 30-minute queue. So when we eventually arrived home, tired and hungry and very cold, I vowed that I would never, ever make them go to a Christmas market ever, ever again. Now, I'm sure at the end of this evening, I will be inundated by people telling me, oh, you need to try this one and you need to go on a different day. But, the whole experience was just too disappointing to ever repeat. And I think it can be sometimes like that with other Christmas things as well. There are other things at Christmas time that can be disappointing. You know, there's much that sparkles and shines at Christmas. You know, the hype is built up with Christmas movies and rose-tinted images on social media, what Christmas ought to be like. But beyond the sparkly wrapping, there can be disappointments. Presents that get returned or family dinners that end in a row. Christmas can seem to promise so much, but actually deliver so little. You can be left at the end of the Christmas season feeling empty and maybe a little bit poorer and with tighter waistbands. But we can be left feeling disappointed. You know, maybe there's other things in our lives that can feel that way too. That promised much but didn't really deliver. Perhaps relationships that started well but ended in hurt and rejection. Maybe job offers that looked really great on paper, but turned out to be pretty so-so. Maybe even life itself has at times felt like it's just not all it's cracked up to be, and with its responsibilities and its obligations, its struggles and its strains. We perhaps even use the festivities of Christmas to sort of paper over the cracks where life just isn't working well. But I believe that Christmas really can offer not just something to hide our disappointments, but to change our reality. You see, Christmas can promise much and actually deliver more when we understand and we believe and we choose to trust the truth of Christmas. You see, that first Christmas, no one was disappointed. Mary of all people should have been disappointed. You know, her relationship with Joseph just wasn't the way that she was hoping it was going to turn out. I'm sure her plan was to get married and then 9 or so months later then have a baby. But Mary's life had been interrupted by the angel's message. But that first Christmas brought, instead of disappointments, an amazing joy to know that she was part of God's purpose and plans. You know, we read earlier, Mary kept all these things to herself, holding them dear, deep within herself. She knew she had a purpose in life. You know, and career-wise, the shepherds were pretty low down the ladder. Shepherds were usually the rough guys, poorly educated, probably a bit dirty and smelly. And who knows what expletives came out of their mouths when those angels appeared in the sky. Yet they were the ones to be picked, to be the first to hear the birth of Jesus. The Bible tells us that they went home after meeting Jesus filled with joy. There was no sense of disappointment among the shepherds after meeting the baby Jesus. Similarly, the wise men had travelled hundreds of miles. It probably took them months to visit a new king. And first of all, they visited the palace, which, as you would imagine, would be the place a king would be. But instead, they found him in a dirty, messy stable. Their plans hadn't worked out the way that they expected them to. It sounds like the recipe for disappointment. But the Bible says, overcome, they kneeled and worshipped him. You know, we might feel like Mary, that our relationships haven't turned out the way we hoped. Maybe our career path has been a bit disappointing, like the shepherds. Perhaps, like the wise men, life hasn't gone quite to plan. But I want to tell you that there is hope this evening. There is hope in the reality of the Christmas story. You know, when we search like the wise men, we find that Christmas is a story of God sending his son to be born, to live, and ultimately to die on the cross, so that he could take on himself all the sin of the entire world. You know, that sin, the wrong things that we do, that create a barrier between us and God. God in heaven. That whoever puts their trust in Jesus might be able to have a relationship with God in heaven. The God who doesn't disappoint. The God who knows us and loves us more than any human being could. The God who designed us with plans and purposes for our lives. The God who can redeem any situation we find ourselves in. And tells us we're not defined by our circumstances, what others say we are, but by what he tells us we are. That we're created perfectly. That we're loved, that we're accepted, that we're understood, that we are priceless to him. You see, the real Christmas story never disappoints. It's more exciting than the glitter and the tinsel and the shimmer of the Christmas season. There's substance to the story of Jesus. And he's been changing lives all around the world for 2,000 years. Just want to show you a little video of someone whose life changed completely when they met Jesus.
So I'm often asked, why did you get involved with crime? And I say it wasn't a conscious decision. I didn't see the careers lady at school and say, there's a course you can do in armed robbery. It was just there. It was all around us. And it all started with weed and drinking, cannabis, the usual stuff. We used to steal badges off expensive cars and swap them up like trading cards. And it just progressed to the entire car. And I got involved with the people who were really pulling all the strings. So we went up to this guy's house who owed them a few £100. It was nothing to them. But the problem was he'd been going around telling everybody that he wasn't going to pay it. So they had to set an example. So they got this guy, he was in his garden, his little lad was there. So he got out of the car, grabbed this bloke, put him in the car, sat between us, and he drove up to what's called Niner's Quarry and pulled a petrol strimmer out of the boot of the car, gave it to me and said, do his feet. So strimmed his feet, just lacerated his feet. And this was my initiation. So that just moved on and on and on. Cut a long story short, Leeds Crown Court, courtroom number 3, he handed me down 7.5 years. And I just thought to myself, that's it, gloves are off. If I'm gonna be bad, I'm gonna be the best kind of bad I can possibly be. Because I got moved from prison to prison to prison and put on category 8 maximum security because of my behaviour. And there's this lad coming round, another inmate, he comes up to me and he says, do you wanna go on an alpha course? I had no idea what he was talking about. I said, look, get out my face, sunshine, before I slap you. I thought no more of it. And next day, and this kid's coming round with this clipboard again. So I'm just waiting for this kid to get within slapping range. And he must have sensed something wasn't right because he blurted something out really quickly. He went, you get Wednesday afternoon at a bang up and you get free coffee and you get free biscuits. I All right, I'll see you on Wednesday. And we just start giving her a hard time, a really hard time. The thing that stopped me, it wasn't what they said, because I wasn't really listening, but it was how they did it. They came back at me with love and compassion every single time. So I sat there on my bunk and I said the first real prayer I'd ever said in my life. I didn't know if I was doing it right or not. But the gist of it was, God, I need you to take away the anger, the violence, the hate. I need you to take away the addictions, which I've tried to fight and I just lose every time. And if you do that for me, I will live the rest of my life for you. But the next morning, I woke up as I always had done. Rolled over to grab the smoke as I always had done, but I couldn't touch it. Everything about it, the look, the thought, the smell, everything made me want to be sick. And I knew what I had to do, so I went and got my little stash and I put it straight out the cell window. And as soon as they'd gone, I started to feel a bit better. I started to calm down a little bit, but I was still freaking out. So I just said to myself, Daryl, calm down, go get a wash, go get a shave. And as I started to get a wash, I looked in the mirror and just stopped dead. Because I didn't recognise my own reflection. I was like, that guy's smiling. Not just smiling, that guy's beaming. And I noticed I didn't just look different, I felt different. Everything had gone. It was as if someone had unscrewed the top of my head and just poured freezing cold water in, and everything had been just washed out clean. So the chaplain comes onto the wing and I just told him absolutely everything. And he said, the man that went to bed last night is not the same man that's standing here this morning. You're a new creation. And that was it. I said, no more. No more fighting, no more drugs, no more nothing. If you owe me anything, forget it. If you're holding anything of mine, keep it. I don't want it. I'm done. I'm finished. Jesus has saved me. And then when it came time for my release, I knew I was going to go into full-time ministry. Reverend Mark Finch, JP, a magistrate, and he said, would you consider coming to Runcorn near Liverpool? We've got a new church plant. We're just getting going. There's a big problem with young people and gangs and drugs. Would you come? I knew it was the right place to go. So he picked me up from the gates on the morning of my release. Took me to his house, not her house, his home. And his eldest is his daughter, Rebecca, who is now my wife and the mother to my two amazing children, Benjamin and Lydia Grace. My life just couldn't look more different than what it is now.
So that video is from the Alpha course, and Daryl there was talking about the Alpha course, and it's a course which over 27 million people worldwide have actually attended, and it's designed for people who want to just find out a little bit more about the Christian faith. To find out more about this God who doesn't disappoint, but brings hope and new life to anyone who asks. And the Alpha evenings are a chance just to get to know some people, have some drinks and some puddings, to hear a thought-provoking talk, and then a chance to discuss what you've heard in a group, in a small group, and chat and ask questions of other people. And we're actually running a 6-week Alpha course here, starting in January. And we'd love you to come along and just check it out. It's totally free, and you're not committed to anything. You just come to the first night, just see how it is. And if you don't like it, you don't have to come again. But just to give it a chance. And there are flyers on all the seats, so do take that home with you. Information about how to sign up or find out more information, and so that would be brilliant. But as I finish speaking this evening, I just want to pray for all of us here to know hope this Christmas time. So let's just pray together. Father God, thank you for sending your son Jesus to make a way for us to know you. I pray that as we search for you, we may find you. And I pray for each of us here to experience a rising of hope this Christmas time. Amen.